session.
Oh yeah,
that was fun.
Do that again. That's so fun. Cool.
Very intuitive.
You guys could always do that for 5 minutes if you want.
We could do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
We'll just start off with the
Yeah,
strength.
just start off with that while people are coming in. Yeah, it's a good idea. All right, so it's recording. You guys are live. Everything
Live.
Wow, look at that. That looks great. Perfect. Pull that power. Yeah, just give you a little bit more breathing room there, buddy. Give you a little bit more breathing room there, buddy. Make sure you got a little bit more spice.
Spicy. Cool. Maybe we can start off with the prayer. Just tuning in, just allowing to connect, joining in mind, allowing your higher self to guide us in this session, and tune in into our creative vision for the year and the intention we've made for this revealment. Allowing grace to guide us. For the highest service of others, our brothers and sisters, of the oneself. Okay, you can come back when you feel ready. Casper, it's great being with you, as always. Today, we're gonna go into obstacles, and Casper, you want to connect like plug us in? What do you think we're gonna talk about today?
I think we have a general idea, since we're talking about creative intention for 2024 and for the revealment. Looking at whatever might be an obstacle or a hurdle or a challenge, however you want to think of it, because the impulse to create and the inspiration, it's all there. It's just these little obstacles. I think of them as like clamps on the energy current that wants to come through, that's fully available to us, and how that energy current gets very powerful and moving when we just start to remove the little clamps, the little obstacles. So I thought it would be really beneficial to share candidly and honestly about our creative intention, and to also talk about where we kind of get caught up in the obstacles, which Randy, in our conversations, we identified that a main obstacle is doubt. We could use that umbrella term doubt, coming from a sense of not deserving it or worrying about what people are going to think, fear of failure, low self-worth. And it seems like a whole myriad of obstacles, but there is one answer. There is one answer. And so that's what I think we can generally speak to today, and whatever else comes through.
And what's the one answer?
The one answer, I believe, is true identification. I am as God created me. everything that that entails, when we understand what that statement means, I am as God created me. Within that is the awareness of the wholeness of the self, that the true self is already complete, that there is no fear, that there is no need, there is no lack, there is no scarcity, no competition. And stepping into that awareness of the true identity evaporates obstacles and lets that energy current really flow. But
For
getting
sure.
there, getting there is not, it's simple, right? It's simple, but getting there takes a little bit of weeding the garden, we could say.
Yeah, I love that, weeding the garden. And even some of the talks have been more metaphysical, and now I feel like it's perfect to just share personal experiences to maybe see if there's energetic blockages or hindrances as the flow can just be used through us as bodies. But definitely, I think the truth is we are the creator, and this practice now feels more like you're just looking at what we don't see as love or what we don't see as good. And yeah, some common threads could be we don't feel worthy enough, or there's lack or fears. So I mean, over here, what's present seemingly could be lack of freedom, even though I know I'm free. It's a sense, the sense of maybe driving or going the airplane, um, doing things that I may enjoy, and giving myself that freedom to just do that, like even verbalize it is a sense of just, okay, what comes through there. And we have all these definitions of what freedom is or what the dreamer is, but it's like we can really have no limit towards our lives as the creator. And I think it's beautiful that we could just talk about these things so we get clear on like what is the limitation, and it could be just programs or societal collective agreements. um, but again, it's that trust and that guidance from our higher selves to give us that direction, and sometimes we don't even know like what it is, like what we really want to say and whatnot.
Yeah, freedom really comes into play because that's what I whittle it down to when I feel like there is a limitation, like a doubt or a fear. And I really want to look at, why do I believe that that can limit me? What is it that I believe that gives that validation where I am underneath some kind of constraint? And I usually will discover that it's purely in my imagination that this limitation applies to me. And it comes from past experiences and, well, past identity perspective, you could say. Like looking back on past creative intentions that were carried out, how they were they were kind of clamped down. The energy was kind of clamped down and really like repressed, where it needed to like look a certain way and meet a certain criteria according to, external authority, like what the world would value versus what the spirit would really value.
Can you go
So,
into some examples about that, just like the blockages that may have happened or clamps?
well, it's funny because at the time in pursuing goals, there was a really different understanding than there is now, looking back in hindsight. And so it's funny because there was a sense of being guided and answering a calling in different things in the past, like different pursuits. One example was I felt very strongly called to open a kind of spiritual retreat center, and it ended up being a holistic wellness sanctuary. So I had this calling on my heart to step into a role as like a facilitator, and so I rented a church just outside of Chattanooga, and all of the planning that went into it was with a loving intention to be of service and to step into a spiritual life. But it was still all coming from the ego perspective, with the criteria that it would need to be like, it's going to have to basically be a crowd pleaser in order to be successful. And so that meant that it really couldn't be the fullness of like the spiritual offering that I wanted it to be. I compromised, is what it came down to. I thought that it needed to offer certain things that were, more about the body, more about like self-help and personal success and that kind of thing. So I did compromise, thinking that, people won't like it if it's not appealing to their personal goals or, what's important to them. So I hired massage therapists and health coaches and yoga teachers, and that's all beautiful and great, but it ended up being that this was in late 2019 that it started, and COVID hit in 2020, where people weren't allowed to gather. And so that meant really that no massages were going to take place, yoga classes weren't going to take place, people were afraid to touch each other. So the business did not come to a success. It was closed down after a short few months, and it felt like a huge failure. But I love how the course says that, like, you are not such a great judge of your advances or your retreats. Oftentimes you get them completely confused. So it was called the Abbey, Wellness at the Abbey. So pursuing that intention, following that calling, and creating the Abbey was the right thing to do for me at the time. And the way that I did it, the way I went about it, did it end up in a business success? No, it did not. But I learned so much, and I realized that was the whole point of following that calling on my heart. Because of what I learned, because I had my own idea about what needed to be done and what the purpose of it was. And all of that was so limited and narrow, and I had no idea. So I had to go for it. And I had to go through that whole experience. And what it revealed to me was, it basically sent me back to the drawing board, where I let go of pursuing the form of answering the calling. I really took it internally. And so I stopped, I didn't start another business right away. I took a couple of years to really just be with myself, with the inner work, and let go of trying to like integrate it really. And I just needed that time. So I could say that at the time there were fear obstacles about, is it going to be a success? What's the right thing to offer? This was a few years ago, and at that time I wasn't really consistent with, pausing to receive guidance and get clarity before moving forward. I really was kind of, looking back, that version of me was kind of frantic and stressed out and pretty much expected to fail, if I'm honestly looking back at the time. So I don't think that the value of like what we're talking about here would be that if I could go back in time, I'd do it differently. I wouldn't. I needed to see how the fear of the form needing to be a certain way did limit me, and it actually let me get off course. It made me make compromises that I didn't need to. So now, being able to look at that in hindsight and to harvest all the lessons and revelations that came from that experience, the old limitations don't apply to my creative intentions moving forward. I've internalized the whole purpose is something that is about self-discovery and self-expression and extending the true self. Creation is love and communication, true creation. And so I really had to stop moving around the deck chairs outside myself in order to pursue the spiritual life. I had to, just go internally and work with that. So I feel like it's good to follow these desires and answer these callings and let ourselves be free of worrying about the outcome or the narrative about what's happening, because sometimes that might sound like it's a failure when actually it's a huge advance. But we can't judge by appearances. So does that did that answer your
Yeah,
question? That was kind of a
beautiful. I
long.
forgot like I think that definitely helps too because it was bringing up stuff here where I wanted to start like an online sports clothing business, and I was using like Amazon fulfillment center, just like drop shipping from like Chinese factories online and just getting like profits from there. But it wasn't really, I mean, the initial aspect of that was just the desire to do something new and be entrepreneur, and just create something. But in essence, those skills are kind of like translated here now, but I knew it wasn't a long-term thing, like similar to what you expressed of like it wasn't the full self-discovery. Like it wasn't, that's what I was looking for. It's just like whether it's you could call it spirituality or awakening or enlightenment or empowerment, um, God, it's just the same desire, that impulse to for something deeper. And that substitute for me was just this adrenaline rush of like of money coming in and out, or having this freedom to go to places, like travel on my own time, and kind of com comparing that towards my friends at that time of like, oh, I could do that. I have this luxury of doing that. But officially, I feel what we have now with this vision of the creative vision of this year is like not looking at the how to's and getting close to what is it what we really want, which is God, and how do we serve others with our skills that we learn. So everything is relevant in that sense, like all the jobs and the experience we've had. Now we're bringing it here for the revealment of a new earth, of God's plan, and we don't have to have that visualized, but it's just the feeling of just community. And it's like all the failures we deemed as like negative, like we could also see it as positive. Like it's also like this energy of transmutation that we're creating for ourselves. And it's also seeing what, like we were talking yesterday about like the false desires of the ego, like egoic desire, like maybe it was to make money or to have freedom, or in my case, like to do things that was different for my peer group at that time. And it's all us. It's like those friends and even the actions on Amazon and eBay and the store building stuff. It's all for us to use. Like I mean, I'm sure like everyone has their own history of what was relevant for them in their journey and how they got here in this moment. But this connection towards God is the ultimate. It's like we are the creators, so we're using that to imagineer and create something that's here in the future, like the future of what we do want. So with the blockages there, I think coming back to what made me feel like I wasn't in flow was just beliefs on lack, like I'm doing this wrong, or even like the legal stuff of like, oh, you have to somewhat know tax laws or legal laws, which even thinking about how much time and effort I put back then, it's like not in the, yeah, I still don't feel like fully competent with that. And it doesn't matter at this point, right? It's like, because we have all the guidance and the resources and abundance there. But at that time, it felt so raw. It felt like this was life or death. Like I'm gonna die. Like I think one of my
Yeah.
fears was like death, of just in the future, like having to think about the future so much that it just felt horrible. It just felt like planning or organizing was just a horrible feeling. So coming back to just the presence and what we could, like, all we have is here. It's the present, and that relaxation will always give us that guidance for everything that we've ever wanted, and allowing that faith, allowing that trust to come in.
Yeah, I think of following these desires as also kind of a process of purifying the heart's desires. Because my pursuit of creating the holistic wellness sanctuary did come from an egoic place of like seeing my role like as a human person. Was still like very ego oriented. Like this success of this business is going to be the evidence that I am enlightened or something, or that I'm on the right path, or that I'm going to be okay. it was coming from it's coming from fear and coming from like a false idea of laws and limitations. So letting myself go for it in my way that I did at the time did purify the desire on my heart, um, as far as how I interpret the way to answer this calling that I feel, how my role of service, you could say, as a human. Um, so I don't have that goal or that vision for building a center like that anymore. Now I feel like I carry the center within me. Like I carry an ashram within me. I carry monasteries within me. I carry sages within me. Like the essence of all of these places that have come into form already, in our history, the essence of these sacred places is actually within me already. And I can allow myself to be an embodiment of that, so that every moment of every day, I am creatively extending that. And so it's kind of like the original idea failed in form, but me following the calling with such sincerity allowed it to actually bloom within me. Like the awareness that what I was looking for in that goal, I actually could find it within myself. And what I find in myself is something that is eternal and incorruptible and totally unaffected by what the world might think of it. It's sovereign. And so now my creative intentions really have a lot less to do with getting a building or hiring staff or having like a marketing plan for the business. It really is just being very present in the awareness that to be the love that I am is to extend myself. And to do that creatively is it feels like I'm in the state where I belong. It feels like I'm home. It feels like it's the most natural thing. And it is the bliss, and it is the joy. It's the radiance. And I can see it affecting the world around me and the people around me. So yeah, there's a freedom with that I'm not bound to a plan that needs to follow a timeline and turn into a particular future outcome. There's freedom to redirect, which really just means refining the aim. Like as I learn things and as I unlearn the limitations, it helps me refine the aim of my one goal, which is self-mastery, which is knowledge of God and knowledge of self. So the creative expressions that come from this standpoint are limitless. and the form doesn't matter. The form is just kind of an idea, an inspiration, a vehicle for moving through the creative process where the obstacles can come up and be faced. And the choose again moment can happen. Choose love or choose fear, constriction or expansion. So yeah, I think that following what's on the heart does purify the heart. Like there's no getting around that. That seems to be the divine process to getting in touch with your authentic self.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then Bashar's famous teaching, where I mean, not maybe not so famous, but just like that teaching of following your highest excitement, following your highest joy. It's like really passion. It's like almost you could feel it, like you'd feel it maybe it's near your heart center, but it's felt in the sense that it's God's expression through you. It's like your unique creativity is expressed and felt because you actually like it. Like you continue to love what you do and do what you love. And that in itself is self-mastery. It's like if you have a whole lifetime of that, you're aligned to what you want, like your rewards, and universe will always reflect that desire. And it's that synergy of life. We're talking about like Elle was talking about thought, action, word, and deed with Andrew recently in one of those talks, and this sense of like alignments, like creating this coherence that you can materialize your creativity, because it's not really your creativity, it's just like it's your connection towards God, and it wants to be expressed some form. It could be a medium of art or music or a business or project or conversation, but it's unique towards you. Like only you can channel it as the creator, like as the unique configuration of the creator. So like not judging anything really. It's like, because if it's your passion, then you'll do it because you love it. And the blockages aren't really considered as blockages. Like you go through it. Like if you want to play basketball all the time because you love basketball, you'll play it. If you want to cook and be a chef, you'll do that because you love it. So any hobby, because even the word hobbies, like if there's a love towards any subject, you'll just practice it or do it or train it, like whatever you want to do with it. Like you're building a relationship with it. So a lot of times I feel like words can really just hinder your flow, like your love, your passion, your joy, when it's really simple. It's just like following your joy and continuing to do what you love to do, and just orientating that without any like pressure or barrier. But of course, yeah, maybe during this path, there's all these tensions and barriers, blockages, mental blockages. But like you said, like we imagined it. Like we imagined all these fears. We imagined all these obstacles. Really, there is no obstacles. They're just thought. And those thoughts just comes for us to just see it. And as a wanderer, as old soul, this identity game of just transmutation, transmuting it, and it's for the service of others. It's almost like that too could be joyful. The most painful thing could be pleasurable, and in fact, it is. Like it's two sides of the same, two different sides of the same coin. So all of it can be just translated and looked into what is blocking it, like where's the resistance, and going through that, like releasing that resistance through it, and allowing, being really honest, because we do have our unique frequency, a unique passion. Like we all have gifts and skills to share, and that's a great joy and honor and privilege to just share them and continue to refine, not like with force, but with that higher self guidance again.
Yeah, maybe this is a good time to touch on the channeling of our forces. Um, you're speaking about the passion that comes, and when we when we connect with what we really care about and we feel that passion, um, it's very powerful. It gives you this momentum where you feel like you just have endless energy. It never feels like a sacrifice to put your time and attention into the project. It There's just this momentum that just makes it feel like it has to be done, like it is life itself to pursue this. And so when it comes to like channeling all the forces, um, this this can this relates to like the false desires of like the ego self or the limited self, and recognizing where we have our energy investments are kind of scattered into things that we really don't want, we really don't truly care about, that we only think they're important. It's part of like the worldly learning, to value certain things, to prioritize certain things. And then because of this value system, it depreciates other things that actually like we want to free and prioritize and bring to the light. So uh, for me, channeling all my energies available meant, cutting off the investments in things that were just kind of conditioned priorities, trying to fit into society and what society says you're supposed to do with your life. So for me, that meant cutting off the things that were like on an everyday basis, taking up my mental attention and my time and my energy. Like social media was something that I cut out. That's just what felt right for me. And that was actually a huge relief when I did it. And I don't miss it. It freed up my mind from having like just constant influx of other standpoints, these other opinions and these other concerns with like things that weren't really part of my immediate experience and really didn't need my attention, didn't need my concern. I didn't need to be tuning in every day to things that were like gonna emotionally jolt me or like make me worry about something. So I quit watching the news. I quit watching TV programs pretty much altogether, for a few years. And I just recognized like if I really want to go after something, I want to, give it my best, give it my highest quality, that I can, to show up for it. And that really helped, like kind of just pruning the tree, trimming off the branches that were reaching toward things that felt important from an older version of myself, but came to be recognized as kind of a wasted investment. And so gathering the energies that were scattered and putting it into something that I really cared about. Um, that was another experience I had, several years ago. I make organic body care products. That's one of my skills. Is I like to make natural products, and I like working with my hands and using essential oils, and I use it as kind of like a self-care ritual to use botanical products that are really healing and comforting and soothing, and to integrate that in part of a daily practice where you just acknowledge that you love yourself and that you honor yourself and take care of yourself and allow yourself to have joyful, peaceful moments. Self-care was very important for me to dive headfirst into, because it was the reversal of the old way, which was a lot of self-neglect. So when I also had this like very profound experience of needing to go vegetarian and being like a voice of animal activism against like slaughterhouses and things, a product that I wanted to make was going to be branded so that it was connected with veganism. It was going to be called Vegan Heart Organics. And this was something I was very passionate about at the time. And so this was at the same time that I cut off all the scattered investments. And because of that, I had just so much energy, creative energy flowing through me to put into this other project, this product that I wanted to make. And again, I didn't ever launch the product, but there was a few months of developing it and doing research and really diving into my passion, just like sinking very deeply into my passion and what I felt called to do. Um, that whole experience revealed to me how much power I have in choosing where to invest attention and care. And but it's, you know, it's funny again, it wasn't because I needed to launch the product and make a business out of it. It was that I needed to go for it. Again, just going for it. Because it's, that was the point, was going for it. The point was not the final outcome or the success in form. The point was the freeing of myself, freeing of my energy to go toward something that I truly cared about and had a passion for, and felt like everything was aligned for me to use my skills and my knowledge to put into something. So just answering that call was a shift in consciousness for me. And I know it's a cliche, but I'm finding in these recent years that cliches end up being so true. That it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So I take that experience, in how I think of things now, where when I have a creative idea, I'm very aware that it is about the journey, moment to moment, and that whatever comes into my experience during that pursuit of a creative idea, it's not in the way. It's supposed to be there. It's showing up during that time because it's part of this experience with going after something and then having the obstacle pop up and looking at it like, which now I would, go to the guidance with when an obstacle pops up. Anyway, I think I went a little long on that, but the point was really just that there's a lot of power in gathering the scattered energies and aligning that with what feels like the truest passion on the heart. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it is something that comes to fruition in form. It absolutely is the process of just being free to trust yourself, to follow the calling on your heart, and to go for it, and to be aware that that calling is going to evolve as you answer it. It's going to expand your awareness of yourself, and it's going to kind of change your idea of what is even the purpose of a creative intention and pursuing a kind of creative expression. It needs to be allowed to evolve and change. So again, just staying present with the moment and the purpose of what we're doing is very key.
Yeah, when I was living in Las Vegas, there was this emptiness feeling, like this day-to-day life of I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just in between jobs and living with my brother, and there's just a lot of tension there. But I knew there's some like higher form of a purpose for life. And I found non-dual devotion, and there's this sense of community that I felt I was like lacking. And there's this guidance to, connect and change my life up, because it didn't feel like there was a strong resonance towards what was going on in Las Vegas. But there was also this doubt. It's like I've never been to North Carolina before, never been to the East Coast, maybe like once in New York when I was little. But there's a sense of like fear in a way. It's like this threshold of what's next. But I knew like in my heart, I felt there's something towards this, whether it was like social memory complex or just service to others. Like a lot of law of one stuff at that time was resonating a lot with me, and just connecting into the deeper truths of why we exist. And yeah, I've just going to the DMV in Las Vegas, there's just these signs that I wasn't supposed to be there. Like my forms weren't getting accepted, just like getting a driver's license in Las Vegas. I have a California's driver's license, and these part-time jobs kind of like went in and out. Like it was just, no, this isn't working, or uh, it just kind of was closing the door. The feeling was just there has to be a transition, and this is like now or never. It's like pulling that like all or nothing kind of energy of like, okay, you just have to make another, you just have to make a step, like take a leap of faith and see that you're always guided and supported. And that's where that jump from Las Vegas to North Carolina happened. And just always like provided. And I had like other stories like that during my life where you just have to just take that leap of faith, and without, like, of course the past learning of lack beliefs and scarcity beliefs can come around, and your family, like your beliefs of what your family can think and say, or your friends, but just almost appreciating those moments of those leaps of faith, like having that guidance of just knowing there's guidance, like not, but not knowing in the 3D realm is like, how's this gonna come to be? It just happens to be so present, like that guidance, that infinite intelligence, the higher self energy of just giving uh nudges and continuing to just open up towards the field, open up towards God and to other people and resources. And even with people, it's like I definitely felt with the context of facing the unconscious, like that opens up another level of just spiritual maturity, or just connection towards truth, and allowing things to come through that weren't seen in the traditional life of just doing things as like trying to be free instead of knowing you're free, was kind of the lesson too. It's like you're free no matter where you go, because you're not the body, you're your awareness, but really like viscerally feeling that that love's intelligence is always guiding you for better or worse, and it's always better because it's only love. So that energy keeps on pulling back, and of course in North Carolina there could be times of doubt and confusion and maybe like impatience of like, I don't know, like what's like how it's supposed to feel. So these like new feeling states, and the creative energy's been there, and it just opens up more and more. It's just the heart just seems to be opening more towards others, and just feeling that guidance and support more and more is always a nice feeling. But it's like the mecca always seems to be, is like your relationship towards God. It's like that's you. So it's, so that just opens up even more in trusting that, like no matter what's being said here with other body dolls, it's just me in my journey too. But the me kind of drops into this purpose of, okay, everything and anything is possible. So we're we're joined in that, and that's also another level of appreciation. I forgot where we were going with this, but the sense of like full creative expression with passion. It's like I feel we overthink it, and it's kind of like this old paradigm forcing stuff, like, oh, this is my passion, I got to make it work, I have to make money for this passion, instead of just settling into the heart, so that you can really have that creative expression by just your truth, and like fully accepting yourself, that self-love, and allowing that self-love to be expressed in creativity, or in however you want to like translate it. It's not even like others don't really have to see that, but it's just like it's an internal process. It's very unique to yourself, and just allowing that, accepting it. And maybe there is a theme where it's like you're meant to be serving others, so that creativity can be influential, inspiring towards others. Maybe that is your theme, and getting clear on that. and there's always more and more clarity as the trajectory seems to go.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that's very present in the experience here is that the creative intention, the creative expression here is very much being channeled into relationships and healing special relationships into holy relationships. And so my creativity is coming in the form of really just different manifestations of love, loving regard. And wow, what an awakening to to meet with a brother in a holy relationship and to share a holy encounter. That's where the creative impulses have been showing up here lately and seem to be going pretty strong now. And it's funny because out of these relationships do come opportunities to be creative and form, to flex the artistic impulse and to actually make things. I like to paint, paint like pictures on canvas, but also like just painting bookmarks. And then I just give them away for free to anyone I know that reads books. And so when I'm painting, it's more for me to just have a therapeutic meditative practice where I just have some quiet time and just enjoy the beauty of the colors and blending and creating images. And same with the bookmarks. I just love blending colors and making kind of abstract scenes. Um, and it's not for any reason other than just something's moving
Just
through me
fun.
and it just feels beautiful and it's making beautiful things and taking care of myself and the selfishness with the capital S, like absolutely it leaks out onto everyone around me. And so there's no more limitation or guilt around doing those things anymore. Like to love myself truly is to love the sonship. Like that's the decision being made there. So but yeah, within the relationships, the creative impulse is coming out in discovering all the ways that I can extend love. I mean, it's amazing when I look back at the old version of myself, how I thought I was loving and kind and caring. And there's just so much confusion about what real love is and the point of love, the point of relationships. So it's been really cool to shift the whole idea of like how to extend the self creatively and recognizing all the opportunities that are just within relationships. And that means people close to me as well as just people that I run into in running to the grocery store or something. Just this awareness that it is a united sonship and that I do have this connection and intimacy with everyone if I am willing to acknowledge it, if I'm just willing to be aware that it's there, which if I'm in my love and my freedom and my flow, like the awareness is there and I meet friends. Everyone is a friend that's welcome to share an intimate connection with me. And that's just a better way to live. I mean, it's like night and day from the old version of being immersed in just the limited ego identity. Night and day, going from imprisonment to freedom. And what a joy to know that this inner healing translates into healing others, healing my brother. So yeah, that's where I feel just this love talking about this because it is like really the authentic expression right now is to see the value in relationships. And really, like the course says, like your brother is offering you salvation. When you see that, he is. To see the Christ in your brother is to, become aware of the Christ in yourself.
Yeah, there's something magical about just being with others too, because I think that kind of stirs up the creative energy. And like if you're just locked up in a room, which I felt maybe for like 2 years, I was in Las Vegas, just mainly in this office space. like there was a lot of trying energy, but it didn't really go anywhere. It was really unfulfilling too. But like when you have others to talk to, or just whether it's creative support or endeavors, or just like or just talk about like food or whatever, like there's an energy that gets used, and it's like it's inspiring just being there. Like you don't even have to be actively doing anything. It's just kind of integrative, and you get like downloads from those interactions, or just like talking about a certain movie or watching a movie together. So yeah, that love and that connection and these shared ideas as the one consciousness we are. It's just like it's just awesome to see it grow and manifest, and just it's almost like this spiral of yeah, energy, creative energy that kind of gets transferred, and there's no lack of it. It's just remembering that we're full of it, full of this infinite abundance, full of infinite creativity, and we're like tapping into that magic, or yeah, skill, or whatever you want to call it, like the mojo, or sexual energy, libido, whatever it is, just like giving it back to each other.
Yeah, even in the littlest things, like answering the question, how are you?
Yeah.
I mean, you can be creative with that. You can put love into that. You can acknowledge yourself and extend that self just in answering the question, how are you? I mean, what an overlooked opportunity, I think.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. Saying how are you, and just like answering, because it also kind of, you could be introspective, or you could just express the feeling at that moment. It's like very
Yeah,
spontaneous, but
yeah, the old pattern is to hear that question and just to take it as a cue to like robotically, follow a script. And the creativity is like no more locked in pattern, no more habit, no more locked into a script of like what you're supposed to say. um like full presence, fullness of self, freedom. What does the moment call for? What do you feel? What do you really want to express? Like take that question as an opportunity to acknowledge the real intimacy between you and your brother, is how I feel now.
yeah, yeah, I love that too, because it's like any interaction, like you get used to that. Like even with the how are you example, like if you're saying that like every day, that could become rigid too. So it's like we're reversing everything. It's like anything could be used creatively, and like your feeling state of how you want to express. Like that's always our power, but it's the conditioning of old patterns. So it's awesome that you brought that up, because there's really no limit towards expression. And even on the computer, like emails and text messages, and how we communicate there, there's always something to be transferred. So there's always expression allowed. If we allow it, like there's always that there could be judgment of what wants to be expressed. But yes, for sure, it's beautiful. Like you could always take it to another level.
Yeah, something you mentioned a minute ago about like the contents of the subconscious coming up.
Mm.
um, I thought I might speak to that for a moment, and share a little bit about what I've been reading in the Red Book, in Carl Jung's Red Book. And he makes a beautiful point that the path is your life. Like the path that you're looking for is to live the fullness of yourself. And so in that sense, don't imitate something that you see outside of you. Let it guide you or help you refine, help you get in touch. But ultimately, you need to live the authenticity, the fullness of yourself. And in the sense that we're doing that in a human body, he talks about living your archetypes. So like living your character, I think we called it character the other day. Living the character to its fullness, to the fullness of its expression, is a way of bringing it to a completion. And in that sense, it dies at that point. That is what needs to happen for the rebirth of the next version, the evolved version. So when we have these desires that are still kind of commingled with the ego identity or the sense of limitation, we are called to live the fullness of that, to just go into the full discovery of that standpoint, of that belief system, that identity, that archetype that is kind of like our inner God. He calls them inner gods, but I think archetype is a better word. So living the fullness of that, like for me, woman, I have my age, my gender, my location, my general setup, my background, my conditioning. There's an archetype kind of coming through this setup. I played the wounded healer archetype for a while. I'm sure there's been several other archetypes that have kind of come through this body. I just haven't really identified them. I don't think that's super important, but I think that the calling that's attached to the sense of self that we are working with, that is important to follow with freedom, because that is living the archetype fully. And that's going to let the stuff that's in the subconscious like come into the light, where it can really be sorted out, where the false can be sorted out from the true. That comes from the freedom to live the fullness of the character or the archetype. So I think a lot of our desires and our impulses do come from thinking that archetype is who we are, but we don't discover fully that we aren't limited to that until we live that to its fullest. We let it come to a completion. We let all its junk come up. Like Carl Jung's very big on living the fullness of the self, meaning the higher and the lower. He speaks to Western civilization kind of dividing the upper half of man from the lower half, and civilizing the upper half and kind of repressing and neglecting the lower half to come into its fullness and completion. And that if we don't do that, those contents, that the lower half contents, so to speak, they don't come out into the light. They don't get developed. They don't come to their completion. So they linger. And this is, what at knowledge devotion we call concealed vibration. As far as I understand it, those are non-different. The stuff that doesn't get to come out into the fullness of its development and experience will just stay there in the closet, in the concealed vibration closet. So
Yeah, it's like we have to integrate it. It's like the lower and higher chakra stuff.
yes.
That's equally important to have balance and to integrate it for the incarnation.
Yeah, and I think that going back to like recognizing the true identity, the true self, being whole, complete, and fearless, that's where I have to get in my state of mind, to not be afraid of integrating the repressed contents, to not attach some kind of false fear or false meaning to the repressed contents. That's where I have to like let myself be free to recognize, okay, there's something that wants to come up and be expressed. It's got to come up. The world, the old conditioning, the past learning might say, no, that's not okay, that's not allowed, it's not going to help, it's inappropriate, or whatever it is. But being in my trust and knowing who I truly am as God sees me helps me understand the purpose of allowing the fullness of the self, even the parts that might be labeled ugly or undeserving of the light. Like, it's part of it. It's an energy that wants to be transmuted back into the light, back into love, where it's recognized as love. So yeah, Carl Jung's big on like these old gods lingering within that weren't given the chance to be brought to completion, and that they will haunt us. They will haunt us from the subconscious, and they will influence our drives and our motivations and our desires. And if we are free to live the fullness of the higher and the lower, whatever package we happen to get as a parcel of the one mind, following that, living the fullness of the self, that is your path. it resonates so much with me. So that came to mind when you mentioned the subconscious stuff coming up.
Yeah, I think I'd love to talk about archetypes and subconscious at another time as well too. I feel like um this is transmutive and really helpful for me and
Already 12 o'clock,
um
man, that hour flew by. I love that.
yeah,
Woo.
yeah, no, it's fine. So I guess we're gonna do a self-expression session and we're gonna take a break now
They're like 5.
for 5 minutes.
Hey, Chris, I just gotta say, I love seeing your smile. I love your enthusiasm. Just love you, brother. Yeah, an archetype talk. Yeah. I'm new to the Red Book and definitely not a scholar by any stretch. The Red Book is Carl Jung's journals and illustrations. Um, I will. It's on loan from a friend of mine. I have like the full big version that has all of his illustrations from what was coming up from his subconscious and his writings. There, it's about his mystical experiences. I'll just sum it up that way. His mystical experiences where he was discovering all his inner contents and making sense of it, having his dark night of the soul and going into like basically total madness. Um, but in a good way.
Yeah, it was like on psych from what I've heard, it was on psychosis and his spiritual awakening was that, but it wasn't traditional. Like it was like from the academic's point of view and he had all this context and he was like going through it and his writings like are on that state of mind, like as in psychosis, like his will to be in that state and then continue to write well the Red Book and the collected
Yeah, well, last
stuff.
thing I'll mention about that since we're closing is that he talks about the spirit of the times and the spirit of the depths. And we can think of that loosely as the ego and the Holy Spirit. And he said that he lived the fullness of the spirit of the times coming through him. He lived it to its zenith. And at that point, the spirit of the depths began to speak to him. So he completed everything he kind of set out to do as a man, as an ego identity, and found his success and reached the zenith of that. And at that point, he was allowed to kind of tap into something else. Yeah, we'll go into that another time. It's fascinating to me. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share and collaborate. And Randy, it was really great speaking with you. I feel like we really touched on things that are helpful to, I know they're helpful to me and I feel like they're helpful to the community. So yeah, wonderful.
Much love. Thank you.
Yeah, much love. So we're taking a break now?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5
You want to
minutes?
tell them right here, baby?
Oh, they can't. Oh, 5 minute. We're gonna take a break and then we'll come back with the self-expression.
Awesome. Awesome.
Cool.
All right.
All right, we'll see you in 5 minutes.
What's that?
We'll see you in 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah. See you in 5 minutes.